Welcome, my friends, to the Bob and Brad podcast. My name is Mike Keenitz, and today I am interviewing Paul Steele, who is the author of the book Yin Yoga 50 Plus, Slow Flows to Restore Your Body, Improve Flexibility, and Relieve Pain. Today, we're going to be talking about Yin Yoga, his book, who it's for, and who could really benefit from it. So without further ado, here is Paul. Well, welcome to the show, Paul. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much yourself, Mike. Pleasure to be here, I must say.
So you are the author of Yin Yoga 50 Plus. So we're going to be talking about yoga today on this podcast. But my first question for you is, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing yoga?
Yeah, sure. It started, I would say, about 20 years ago. I've always played dynamic sports like what you'd call soccer and rugby, most sports in general. And I've tried to use yoga in its different forms as a way to, if you like, counterbalance, yourself. You get short hamstrings as men when you're playing these sports. You might have problems with your calf muscles or your Achilles. And I've used some forms of yoga to try and counterbalance that. But I didn't really like these kind of flowy kinds of yoga. And then one day they put on Yin Yoga at the gym, must have been about 10 years ago. And I realized, wow, this is really good because there's long, slow holds that you guys as physiotherapists will know all about. And then some time ago, I damaged my knee and nothing seemed to work for it. I had, PLP, where they retransfuse your blood and put it into the knee, and I had cortisone and nothing would work. But I noticed that after a few months of yoga and actually supporting the knee, then I have no issues whatsoever. I have full range of movement. And I thought, wow, this is the yoga for me, which is why I started to look more deeply into it.
So is that what inspired you to write the book?
What inspired me to write the book was that I went around to friends and I said, hey, you should try this. It's brilliant, particularly for people in my age. And I got people enthused with it. And then I did a course, actually, a Yin Yoga teacher's course in Malaga in Spain about 5 years ago, something like that. And as a teacher, what you do is that you write lesson plans. I'm a teacher from 100 years ago. So I'm very used to writing lesson plans. Okay, this is what I want to do for the start. This is what I want to do for the main flow. This is what I want to do at the end. And then it occurred to me that after a considerable number of lessons that I had the nucleus of a book. So it was, I wouldn't say it was easy, but then it was just a case of writing an introduction about what is Yin Yoga, what are the benefits to it, and then writing some kind of conclusion about the people we used as models and how Yin Yoga had affected them positively, and then just an ending about what else can you do for life. And that's how the book came about. I mean, I'm never going to make a fortune from it, but I feel that if people can feel both physically and mentally as well as I do at my age, then the job is done.
So where can people find your book?
Well, you can buy it, as far as I'm aware. I'm lucky to have a very good publisher called Human Kinetics, so you can buy it either directly from Human Kinetics' site or any good online bookshop. Amazon is obvious, but wherever, because the publisher is good at putting out the book, then you'll find it anywhere. I think worldwide, basically.
Sure.
On English language sites, of course.
Yeah. So do you want to mention your website a bit? Because I noticed you have some other tools in there, like you have some videos and demonstration stuff as well.
Yeah, sure. I wrote a website called Yin Yoga 50 Plus just to reflect and so that people could easily find what to do or what could I say, get some kind of inspiration from it. So all the reasons why you should do Yin Yoga are there, but I also put up sequences, say for your back, or if you're a golfer, or if you're a hiker, or if you're a skier. And also what's turned out to be really quite popular is 15-minute fixes. So what can I do in 15 minutes? They're going to stop my shoulders rounding because I sit in front of a computer all day long. Or what 15-minute fix can I do because the base of my spine is hurting, or my hips are giving me some problem? And those have been particularly popular, I must say.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting me know. But yeah, Yin Yoga 50 Plus.
That sounds like a good idea. We got to take that idea, 15-minute fixes.
Yeah, I can tell you it really does. It really works because, hey, let's face it, everybody has 15 minutes, right? You don't maybe want to spend an hour, even though the poses are long held poses in yoga. It simply means you just do 2 or 3 and that's it.
Sure. Yeah, I've never tried yin yoga. The times I've tried yoga, it's either been a class, but at home when I've done it, I typically
Mm,
just do a follow along video. And the one
mm.
I was most consistent with was a 10-minute one. Because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I could do this numerous days a week where it's like, this is an hour. And I'm
Mm,
like, I don't want to
yeah,
spend an hour
exactly.
doing this.
One of the things I say a lot to people actually is that just with yin yoga, it's a long held pose, right? The idea of it is that you're relaxing into the pose, and slowly but surely your tendons and your ligaments are going to release. You take one pose, let's say, just like sitting with your legs extended out in front of, which is called caterpillar pose. And maybe if you're watching TV and the advertisements are on, I don't know how long they are in the States, but here they're very long. Then you can like use the advertisement time to actually do your body some good, you know?
Sure. So, what makes yin yoga different from other forms of yoga? I know you talked about longer poses, but are there other things?
Well, I think the trick is, I'll go back to it and say it is this long held pose. I mean, you're sitting in a pose between 3 or 5 minutes. So, of course, you can't help but let the tendons and the ligaments in your, let's say, your shoulder blade, they're going to release. They're going to let your muscles relax. You're not going to feel the stress and the tension. It's a big tension relieving kind of yoga. Whereas if you're doing another kind of yoga, from my remembrance of it, you were doing a muscular kind of yoga. You were trying to stimulate the muscles. Here, trying to relax the muscles and stress the tendons to really increase the range of motion. And I think that is the key to why it's particularly good for people who maybe been sitting in the wrong position for too long, doing repetitive strain injury or whatever. You get this, back to your body, if you like.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I've sat in a pose for 3 to 5 minutes. That's
And
it
it's
sounds
actually, what could I say? The trick, I think, is the other issue as well with yin yoga is to breathe. I mean, everybody breathes, right? If we stop breathing, we're in trouble. But of course, we do this automatically. But yin yoga is all about taking long, deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth to relax your whole body, I suppose, at the same time. I mean, if you can relax your mind and you can relax your body, then you get total physical, mental, and emotional benefit from the type of yoga, which is what really appeals to me and appeals, I hope, to lots of other people my age.
sure. So, I know the book is written for 50 plus. What age are you?
I'm 70.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow, I would not have guessed that. You do not look
No, and
70.
to be honest with you, it's a cliche, right? I would say, well, you know what? I've never felt better. Of course, I felt better when I was 23,
Sure.
But as a 70-year-old, I take no medication of any kind. I have no aches and pains anywhere. I still ski. I play lots of golf. I can train at the gym as much as I want to. So I have no limitation at all. And this sounds like almost like an hallelujah moment, but I'm convinced that one of the main reasons is because I practice this form of yoga, which is still and good for my body.
Sure. When did you start practicing it?
About 10 years ago, I would say.
Oh,
First time. This kind of yoga anyway, about 10 years
sure.
ago.
So there's hope for me, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm only in my mid-30s, but still, I feel like I'm probably tighter than most people in their
But do you
60s or
not think this
70s.
is true? I mean, Mike, if you think about it, most men, and of course, it's the same for women as well, but lots of men have huge problems with their hamstrings because they're playing, like I said, they're probably playing some kind of explosive sport and they're not stretching afterwards. The classic one, I think, is when you see people. I normally call it the rosé moment, when you have a glass of rosé in your hand or whatever, and you watch people sitting around at a barbecue, and lots of people, they fall straight back onto their elbows and put their feet up, if you know what I mean, with their feet flat on the floor.
Mhm.
Because the reason for that is because hamstrings are too short, the base of your spine, your lumbar vertebrae are too weak because we just either sit in chairs all day long or we haven't been stretching out and doing what's really good for us.
Yeah, did you just pick out my problems there? Because I have tight hamstrings.
I do yin yoga for some of the neighbors, and the guy that's a marathon runner, he has those problems.
Yeah, I'm actually training for a marathon right now, and I lift weights, and I'm kind of a meathead. So yeah, I do stretch. I don't do yin yoga specifically, but I at least have a stretching routine now because as I've gotten to my 30s, I've gotten some injuries. So I
Mm.
realize flexibility is pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, I mean, you guys probably do the same thing. We talk about the three S's, right? You know, strength, stamina, and suppleness. And I think most people, they're really into strength. Oh, look how much I can lift. They're really into stamina. Look how far I can run. And then they think, oh, we forget the suppleness. And I think this is why, again, getting back to Yin Yoga, it's made such a difference. Honestly, I couldn't get out of bed 10 years ago. Now I hop out, I would like to say.
Sure. So, why do you think yoga, yin yoga in particular, is beneficial for people over 50? I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but do you want to elaborate more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and again, we more or less touched onto the subject there now, didn't we? I mean, you've spent all those years doing a particular or being in a particular way. You know, you might be right-handed or left-handed. Of course, we're either right-handed or left-handed, which means we're going to be stressing our body on either one side or the other. You know, if you think of a baby, when a baby's born, it's totally symmetrical. You have this total symmetry in a baby. And the older we get, the more asymmetrical we get. Now, I see particularly in people who have come up a bit further in years, you know, where their back might start to bend, their spine is going, I mean, let's face it, you're sitting down all the time, so your spine's got to go that way or that way, you know. And what Yin Yoga does is, if you like, it can help bring back that symmetry because you're extending range of motion. It helps bring back that symmetry, I would suggest to you, in our bodies. And that to
Yeah,
me is number one, number two, number three, number four. It really, really does help put ourselves back into place, if you like.
sure. Yeah, I noticed most people on their dominant side normally that's where they get injury prone in the
Sure.
therapy world anyway, especially
Yeah.
with shoulders. If anyone
Yeah.
has a shoulder problem, it's almost always unless they had an accident of sorts, obviously. But
Mm.
so
You guys know all about this, of course, you know.
yeah. So how does yin yoga address common age related issues like stiff joints, reduced flexibility, and even stress?
Well, if you take the stiff joints, I think you've got it there again. I mean, as I understand it, and you as a physiotherapist will know much more about the mechanics of the body. But let's take you mentioned shoulder. So again, there's one pose called open wing, whereby I'm going to be stretching my shoulder, and I'm going to use this hand to put pressure as to how much pressure I put onto the shoulder. Sorry, if you can imagine. So this shoulder's going back here because I'm pushing down on it. So straight away after several minutes of just doing that, then that muscle joint is going to release. I mean, you guys know more about massive, myofascial release, if you like. You're going to be pushing because you're stressing the tendons and the ligaments and the fascia. Then you're opening it up. And for people again, when they're getting to our age, that's a really big benefit. I say that's benefit number one. Number two, I think, and I'll go back to this whole business of deep breathing, the whole idea of breathing deeply through your nose and then out through your mouth, because as you'll know, we have two types of nervous system. We have a sympathetic or the fight and flight nervous system, which is because, you might think you're going to end up in a fight or whatever, and the stress that comes into your body and the amount of cortisol it produces. And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system, if you like, the rest and digest, which really, the fact that you're in long, slow poses and you're breathing deeply and you're coming into yourself, then you're relaxing and you're stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system, which gives you a real deep relax, if you like, mentally and physically.
Yeah, I typically for people that aren't aware with breathing techniques, you normally want to go in through the nose and out through the mouth when you want
Yeah,
to get
sure.
more relaxed. Obviously, if you have allergies at the time, it might be
Mm.
kind of hard with breathing, but are there modifications in your book to someone that has really limited range of motion or maybe can't get to the ground as easily?
Yeah, sure. I mean, actually, one of the 15-minute fixes is you can basically do it as you wake up in the morning, so you can do it in bed.
Sure.
If you think about, let's think about a cat. I mean, you know the classic cat-cow pose, which is in most forms of yoga. As soon as a cat wakes up, the first thing it does is it arches it back and it gives itself a good stretch. We don't. We get out and say, oh, I've got problems here. So you could actually do yoga in bed. You can do yin yoga on a sofa. The point being that you propping yourself up. And those are for people who actually can't get down onto the floor. But most yin yoga poses are either, in fact, all of them are either sitting or lying. So because they're sitting or lying, then it gives you really all the impetus you need to do those poses. But secondly, yes, you can use blocks or bolsters. Bolster is like a big fat cushion, if you like, or pillows to actually prop yourself up during the pose. And of course, all that the more comfortable you can be in your discomfort, if you like, the longer you can hold the pose, the more good you're going to do as you're getting older. If that answers your question, Mike.
I think it does. Yeah, it's just obviously if they can't get to the ground, a bed is a higher surface, and then if there's seated options, most people can do that. Our demographic is actually like 50 plus that listen to this podcast, so I just wanted to get some clarification there. So, are there any specific poses or sequences you would recommend for beginners or new to yoga? I know personally, is it in your book, the child's pose?
Yeah, sure.
That's like my favorite one because it just kind of gets everything. But that's just me. I'm biased.
I would suggest to you that it depends on where are you having are you having any problem? If you're not having a problem, then I go back and say, yeah, fine, child's pose, great, that's the place to be. But if, for instance, you got tight hips, or a lot of people in my age have new shiny titanium hips, or they have nice shiny titanium knees, quite a few people, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So what can I do to help me not get shiny titanium hips? Or if I already have them, what can I do to make them work better? And I think one of them is, as I say, it's called caterpillar pose, where you're simply sitting up with your legs out straight. Then when you feel it's okay, you can bend forward. In yin yoga, we talk about something that's called finding your edge. And if you like, it's a kind of Goldilocks sensation between putting not too little and not too much stress on a particular area. So if you can sit up with your legs out straight and then gently fold forward, how far forward can I fold? And then when you've found that position, just stay there. And then over time, hopefully you're going to feel that the base of your spine is going to release and I go back to hamstrings because I think it's a real common problem with lots of people. Your hamstrings release, your knees will feel less pressure, and so on. And then you can actually lift one of your legs closer to and put that leg like this. So if you have one leg straight, then the next leg is bent over, which is called a half butterfly, and then you're actually stretching out the groin muscle too. I think those two are really excellent because you've got, especially the half butterfly, because you're stretching the groin on one leg, you're stretching out the hamstring on the other, and you're stretching the base of your spine, the lumbar vertebrae at the same time. So you have three things in one. But getting back to yours, Mike, I have to say, yep, I think child's pose is excellent because you're taking everything from your ankles, along the knee joint, all the way up into your hips, base of your shoulders, the lat muscles here, all the way across. It's a lovely pose, yeah.
I probably just like it because I can get into it. I can't get into the hamstring ones. I know that's a good seated one. Is by chance, I don't memorize all the things from your book, but do you have the legs on the wall stretch in there for hamstrings?
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I've got a whole
I love that one. That one's fun. You just kind of lay there and hang out.
This is the way to do it. I mean, if you've got a wall, you've got the perfect, we talk about props, I talked about sort of, we talked about bolsters and blocks and the rest of it. Hey, the best prop you can have in yoga is a wall, right? Mm-hmm. You just like can I get my bottom close to it? Can I swing up with my legs? And once I'm there, and I can just feel like, first of all, the blood's going to rush down. I can relax, I can breathe properly, and I can feel the tension. Just like, what I like about yin yoga is feeling that tension, both physical and mental, just ebb away, just like the ocean, just leave your body. And I think it's wonderful. I really do. So, yep, legs straight on the wall, split legs on the wall, butterfly legs on the wall. Just use the wall for as long as you like, as often as you like.
Sure.
Lovely.
Do you want to talk about kind of how your book is broken down into sections?
Yeah, sure. First of all, first of all, I'd like to say that I took professional help. Yeah, I'm a qualified yin yoga teacher. And yes, I used to teach sport about 30 years ago. So, I know, if you like, the basics of anatomy and all the rest of it. But I took help from both a physiotherapist and an MD, a doctor who's also a yin yoga teacher and specializes with people 50 plus. I just wanted to make sure that everything in the book, everything I'm saying is approved by people like yourselves, qualified physiotherapists and qualified practitioners. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing was to say, well, okay, what is this stuff about yin yoga? Why is it good for people who are 50 plus? I mean, what's in it for me, kind of thing. And then I just talk about the various benefits. I mean, things like it would have, lots of people I understand when they get older have a problem with sleeping. So you've got the fact that you're relaxing deeply is going to help you sleep, going to help your memory, it's going to help your joints, all this thing. So what are the major benefits of it? Then I looked at something that's and I'll be interested in your view on this. And I looked at the whole area of traditional Chinese medicine, because yin yoga practitioners will always tell you that it's very closely bound to traditional Chinese medicine, where you have the meridian lines that flow through your body, which everybody would know as, if you like, the acupuncture lines that are within your whole physique, if you like, and how people use acupuncture. And a yin yoga teacher will tell you that what you're doing is, when you're in a particular pose, you are stimulating certain acupuncture points because of the flow of the meridian lines. How do I feel about that? I put this in the book because that's such a large part of yin yoga theory. But then I started to look at, well, wait a minute, Western medicine says Chinese medicine doesn't exist. But Western medicine also says that, hey, acupuncture actually does work as pain relief. So anyway, I did quite a bit of a section on Chinese medicine, a bit about the props you would need, a bit about the actual theory, if you like, that there are three main points to yin yoga. The first is, as I've discussed before, is finding your edge. Just what is your Goldilocks point? What's not too little and not too much that you can spend 3, 4, or 5 minutes with in a particular pose? The next thing is, if you like, find stillness. But if you're in a pose, and then all of a sudden you move out the pose and you're back at the back, then you've lost that time under tension. So try and find stillness. And I think both physical and mental stillness too. And the third one is you're playing for time, if you like, so find the time. So I often use a phone, and then I'll simply set 3 minutes on the phone and then start the pose from then. So find your edge, find stillness, find the time, are the major benefits. Moving on from that, I looked at different kinds of fairly long sequences, if you have the time, for things like your shoulders or your back or your hips, or again, for hikers, for golf players, for skiers, because those are the three things I like to do. And I did several of these kind of sequences. And then I finished off with these 15-minute fixes, and then a little bit about what else can you do to give yourself a really good feeling that's not just yin yoga. Because, hey, it's yin and yang, right? Yin is great for passive stretching, but what else are you doing to make yourself feel good?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I don't know about other countries, but in the United States, acupuncture, the physical therapy realm has something called dry needling. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I can imagine it's similar to acupuncture, right?
It is. It's basically you find a trigger spot and then you put a needle in like it, except for it's connected to like a small electrical current. So something similar to a TENS unit. And then they increase the blood flow and circulation that way. But yeah, it's a similar concept. It's just you kind of have to go through some special training to get certified in it.
But do you run through the same meridian lines that an acupuncturist would do using this hot needling?
A lot of it's just more pressure point or trigger point therapy. So like wherever the tenderness is, it's not necessarily based off meridian lines or anything like that. But I would imagine if someone goes into meridian lines and can correlate the two, they'd probably see that. I'm not super familiar with meridian lines, obviously, but.
No, well, I mean, how do I feel about it? I wouldn't say I was skeptical, but I think it's like everything else. It's like acupuncture too, right? I mean, if acupuncture works, then it works. If you feel a pain relief, then you feel a pain relief. If by doing yin yoga, you're pushing on those particular acupressure points, or if you like, those meridian points, and you're feeling that your body is releasing and you're relaxing and you're increasing your range of motion, and you think it's because of meridian lines and TCM, fine.
Yeah, whatever helps. Even if it's real or placebo, it doesn't really matter to me as long as you're getting benefits.
But isn't that true? Because I mean, again, when I was researching the book, I mean, 70% of lots of illnesses are apparently psychosomatic. So, of course, if your psyche is saying that this particular course of whatever yin yoga or acupuncture or acupressure is actually making me feel good about myself, then hey, it's working.
Yeah. It's saying, I mean, it's pretty common with any injury. If you have back pain and your neuroreceptors are constantly thinking, I have back pain. As soon as I get up, I'm going to start having back pain. You're already setting yourself up for having back pain. Where if you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try not to have as much back pain today or feel better, you might still have it, but mentally, you might not feel it as much. So it's kind of a.
Something I actually, on the point, if you like, the whole idea of the fascia, we talked about the tendons and we talked about the ligaments and yin yoga, the idea of the fascia is a big idea. And I know that more and more research is being done about the fascia and how it sort of sticks, if you like glue. And one of the way to unstick it is through yin yoga. And I read somewhere, and I can't actually, I'd have to go look it up and tell you again where it was. But I read somewhere that 30% of back pain was to do with a stuck fascia, if you like. So if you can do anything to move that fascia around and make it a bit more pliable and flexible, then hopefully you'll get less problems with your back. I just thought it was an interesting thing.
Yeah, the fascia. If people fascia.
Fascia.
For people that don't know what fascia is, it's kind of a thin material that goes over your muscles, but it's long and it lines your whole body. We actually had Bob from Bob and Brad interviewed Robert Schleip a long time ago, was kind of the fascia expert. So if people want to get into fascia, they could check that out. He's way smarter at that than I am.
I actually put a part of the book called for a fascia fascia. So yeah.
So I know we talked about modifying some of the poses, but if someone really has physical limitations or chronic conditions, can they still safely practice yin yoga?
I mean, the obvious statement here, isn't it, is whatever you do, consult your doctor before you start.
Sure.
Like say to the doctor, hey, can I, I'm thinking of going to yoga. Can I do this? Is it okay? But I think my answer, of course, is going to be, of course. I mean, if I take my wife as an example, she's a cancer survivor. She's fine now. But for a couple of years ago, it was touch and go. She had some kind of colon cancer. And when she started after the treatment, she went to physiotherapy, and lots of the physiotherapy that she was receiving was very similar to the kind of yin yoga exercises that I would do. And she said, oh, I did this pose and this pose and this pose, but it was different in that time. So I mean, it's great, I think, for, first of all, cancer survivors where you might have had problems with your lower body. If you think about, again, people who are like sort of a chronic problem with their hips or their knees or whatever, yourself that by doing some of these poses, because they're soft and they're gentle and they're over time, then you're stimulating the flow of blood. You're probably stimulating the synovial fluid, the fluid that's going to go around your cartilage. And by stimulating those kind of things, then you're going to make yourself feel better. Heart condition is another one. Because you're doing an exercise with deep breathing, then it's going to regulate your heartbeat. It's probably going to let your blood pressure be a little bit less. You're regulating your blood pressure, your heartbeat. You're regulating your nervous system. So if you like coming down in, what do you say in English? I'm almost getting this mixed up with Swedish. In the Swedish, they say like coming down a bit. Yeah, it brings you down, if you like.
Sure.
And the one issue I would say might be an issue, and that is if you have osteoporosis, because some of these exercises where you're flexing may well not be good for people with osteoporosis. Now, I would say double check with your doctor before you would do, particularly yin yoga, especially like flexing moves where you're doing, for instance, a forward fold or a forward bend, And again, it's Goldilocks, right? I mean, how not too little, not too much, because if you don't do anything, then osteoporosis is going to get worse.
Sure.
But don't overdo it, because if you do, then some of the particular kind of poses may well not be good for osteoporosis.
I like that term, Goldilocks. Makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I'll just make the comment because we always get it on stretching videos. If you've had a joint replacement, you probably want to check with your physician what you can and can't do because everyone is slightly different. So I would check with that. So, are there any other benefits of yin yoga that you would like to talk about?
Sure. But first of all, Mike, it's really interesting you said that because you just said everybody is different.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so great about yin yoga, because it's designed for everybody, if you like. I mean, it doesn't care. No, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's not what you're doing in the pose. It's how you're feeling in the pose. And if you're feeling it, as the saying goes, if you're feeling it, then you're doing it. You're actually getting the benefit of it. Don't care what you look like. And I think another issue of that is you're not actually using your body. Some people, they have to be perfect in different types of yoga. They use their body, if you like, to get into a pose. Here it's the other way around. You're using the pose to get into your body, to go inside yourself, both physically and mentally. And I think that is a huge benefit for people who, whatever they are, but again, stimulating the, if you like, the acupressure points. But for me, it's the whole idea of increasing range of motion, because the smaller the range of motion, the more aptitude for pain. Greater the range of motion, the less aptitude for pain. And again, it works for people. I have people with hip replacement. I have people with knee replacements who I work with. So.
Do you still teach classes in person?
Yeah. I start again in, if you like to come, the next one is in 3 weeks' time.
Didn't you say you're in Sweden right now?
Yeah. Just pop over, Mike. You'll be fine. You can go once a week for the 6 week sessions. But yes, I do. And we have a square outside, just outside here. We are 19 households, and I run yin in the yard on Sundays. So we do yin for the neighbors, and most of them are a lot younger than 50, I can tell you, but they all still enjoy it.
Sure. How long do the classes usually last?
Well, I do about an hour.
Sure.
It's a nice time. You could do a lot longer, but an hour whereby I would start in a relaxing pose, like, Shavasana, which is called the corpse pose, or dead body, if you like. So I always start and finish with those poses. And then it depends on what I'm doing it for, like if I'm doing it for your backs, or if I'm doing specifically on your shoulders, and then, doing the different exercises for a particular area. And then I would also finish again in Shavasana. So start and finish, we're trying to bring the body down, scan the body through. Okay, where's my problems today? Where am I feeling a little bit sore today? How do I feel after I finished? So like a before and after thing. Like, wow, how do I feel now?
What term is that? That sounds, the term you use sounds a lot better than dead body pose. What was it called?
Corpse pose.
Corpse pose. Sorry. What's the term for it?
Yeah, that's the other thing. What I like about yin yoga too is, like, the poses, the names of the poses are Western names of poses, right? So it's like the butterfly pose or the caterpillar pose. So there's only two that aren't. One is called Banan Asana, which I think is great, banana pose.
Oh,
because asana means pose, right? And then Shavasana, and Shav is like corpse pose. Those are the only two where you use these Sanskrit names, if you like. So there's no namaste, or there's none of this. Sure. It's just like hi. It's as you probably know, it's like West Coast USA meets 3,000-year-old Taoist philosophy. It's quite nice, actually. It's in its fusion.
What's the corpse pose? You just lay dead on your back, or what?
Just lay back on a flat surface, palms up in the air, and just lie there. You might want to just spread your arms about, spread your legs about. Sure. Just lie there for 3 or 4 minutes, and then just think, wait a minute. Oh, wow. And it's so nice because there's a bit there, there's a bit there, there's a bit there. I really need to work on those bits, maybe, during the session, or during the day, or whenever you have time.
Sure. So what advice would you give someone over 50 who is hesitant to start practicing yin yoga?
You might have heard this quote before, but just do it.
I've heard it a time or two.
Yeah. I wish I'd have come up with that myself, actually. And again, I think, like, just try an easy pose, like the one we talked about before, where you just like maybe with the advertisements are on, and if you can get down on the floor, just like sit down on the floor with your legs in front of you. And then when you can, just sort of slightly bend forward, and you're just starting with one simple pose. So one pose a day maybe, and then add up to a couple of poses a day. Then maybe go on in the book, have a look at the 15-minute fixes, and then maybe check out some. I actually do have a YouTube channel, but I've not got very far just now. It's all the poses. I don't do the 15-minute fixes so far. What can I do in 10 to 15 minutes? And then maybe after that, start to go to classes. When you feel confident, go to class. But the thing about yin yoga is nobody cares what you look like in the pose. The only person who probably cares about that is you. What you should care about is like, wow, how much better I feel once I've done that pose, and that to me is the essence of yin yoga, and why I enjoy, if you like, talking about yin yoga so much, because it makes you feel so much better. And again, I've gone on about this several times, but both mentally and physically, it really does make you feel, and emotionally, an awful lot better.
So again, if people want to check out the book, the full title is Yin Yoga 50 Plus, Slow Flows to Restore Your Body, Improve Flexibility, and Relieve Pain. I did Google it. If you just look up Yin Yoga 50 Plus, it comes up right away. So you don't have to memorize the whole title.
In that case, I made the right, what could I say? The right tagging or whatever. No, I didn't do tagging, but yeah, if you just put in Yin Yoga 50 Plus, it comes up straight away. Yeah.
Yep, and then your website is the same, Yin Yoga 50. Is it Yin Yoga 50 or Yin Yoga 50 Plus?
Yin Yoga 50. I don't think you can put the plus
sure
on a website, and that's why. So yinyoga50.com.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Mike, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I do appreciate you guys for spending the time with me today. Thank you.